Hey, everybody. Welcome to View from the Top podcast, where we help growth-minded men who desire momentum in their business, their family, and their finances get through the valleys and up the mountain to their very own view from the top. I'm so glad you're listening in today. My name is Wally, and as we get started today, I want you guys to know what's coming up in the podcast. So as a founder or as an owner in your own small business, I know in mine, we can get to a place where, we want to grow, but we kind of get jammed up with this mindset that has us doing all the things because only we can do them the best, right? Or because we don't really currently see a way to fund having a capable resource to help us. So we're going to take this head on today, and we're going to kind of confront these limiting beliefs with Big A. So let's get him in here. Big A, you there? You ready to roll today?
Wally, I'm ready to go. I'm fired up. I get excited every time I listen to you do the opening of the podcast because it talks about going through the valley, up the side to where we all can have that view from the top. And recently I was in Montana and we went to Big Sky, and I've never been to Big Sky. It's beautiful there. I don't know if you've been or not. Yeah, you ought to go. It's really cool. Nice. So a friend of ours owns a place out there, invited us to come out for a weekend. So Robin and I went out. But I thought about view from the top when I was on top of Big Sky. I was like, hey, man, we have come up the side of this big hill on this trolley, like this ski thing. They take the skiers up. By the way, do you ski?
I do. I have spent a number of years, but I have downhill skied yet. Not out west, but I have skied.
I'm tapping out. I'm not skiing. I can just tell you right now.
Have you ever tried?
No, and I'm not going to try.
You've never tried?
I would break my neck. Listen, these guys.
The bunny hills, man.
I'm not getting on any hill. These guys had these bicycles, and they were on the ski lift going up. Yeah. And listen, those guys, they had to have been on something.
Those downhill bikes, man.
Man, they got sick. On that. Oh my gosh. They went off hills I wouldn't walk down, and they went down these hills, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But anyway, I thought about that visual when you were opening the show. I was like, man, standing on top of Big Sky, looking at what a great view. And that's what we want to do here for you. We want to help you develop your own view from the top. So man, I couldn't be more excited to be here today. Hope things have been going well for you.
Going well, man. Going pretty good. Done being sick for a while, I hope, and on the mend. So things are heading in the good direction. I got a question for you today.
Okay.
So about a month or so ago, I was had to go to the doctor because I wasn't feeling good. Just about some. Actually, you know what it was? It was when I had my own mountain biking accident. When I went to the doctor. So that's
there you go. You're one of those crazy people. You ride that bike.
I wasn't that crazy, man. But I mean, you saw the video. It was pretty ugly. But anyway, I had to go to the doctor to get checked out.
Hold on. Well, wait a minute. We got to go back. You're not going to get away that easy. So you just tell the audience what you did. You recorded yourself going over a jump. You got a mountain bike.
There was three jumps. Three jumps.
Okay.
I recorded all three. I was going to make it into this lesson about progression.
Yeah, you got a lesson. There was a progression. All right. I'm telling the story. You hold on a minute. And so you got the video camera set up, and all of a sudden, man, you come over this jump. But the front tire didn't leave the jump. It was like, what lift. In the world? What happened? Lift. And next thing I know, you're tumbling in this video. I had to watch it about 50 times. Robin and I sat on the couch, and you were moaning and groaning. And all of a sudden, I see this arm comes up, grabbing, turning. I wish the camera had been a little more to the right. But man, you were grumbling and groaning. You about got hurt. I mean, you're getting too old, Wally, to be doing these jumps. I mean, somebody.
So now my lessons changed after the video. But I fortunately, and it was a blessing that God protected me, but I didn't get seriously hurt, but I felt seriously hurt that day. I went and got some x-rays, and while I was waiting for my slot to get in to get an x-ray, there was a sandwich shop next door, and I was hungry. So I went over there and got my sandwich, and I came out, and they had some tables in an outside seating area. And I went to sit down, and I looked to the table next to me, and there's nobody around. It's just me. It's a beautiful day, sun shining, sitting there with my sandwich. I looked right next to me, and there's a bag of Cheetos, and it was unopened.
Oh.
So
and
so I had this conversation with myself for probably longer than I should have about should I eat these Cheetos or not. And I declined to eat them on the premise that they weren't healthy for me. But what would you do? If you see something like that, like have you ever picked up something that someone just kind of left around and used it?
No, never.
Never?
No, not going to happen either, because I have no idea where it's been, what they've done to it. You could have been on like some TV show or something. They're betting whether you're going to pick up the Cheetos or those funny shows. By the way, speaking of funny shows, I'm going to tell the whole audience, they'll be looking for it. I have submitted that video to the Home Funniest Videos, and I hope they accept it. I haven't heard back recently. It's up for review, but we'll be sure and let you know, the audience, if Wally ends up making the Home Funniest Videos. I got a deal with my granddaughter. My granddaughter and I conspired, and we said, hey, if we win, we're going to split the money. So
how is it you get to split the money on my video, first of all?
I don't know. You should have thought of sending it in. You should have thought about it. I don't know. But
give me any time, man. I was on the men. I'm like laid up for like 5 days, and you're like sending videos. We're capitalizing
on your wreck. Back to the Cheetos.
Yeah,
no,
so anyway,
I wouldn't eat it. No, nothing. I'm not eating anything. No.
So my dad growing up, I don't typically do it either. I'm trying to think, things that I've used that other people have left laying around. I couldn't think of too many things that would be. Sometimes you find money here or there, but you typically turn that in if it's a way to do that. So, but my dad, growing up, I remember one day we were going downtown. We lived about, I don't know, seemed like forever. It was probably 4 miles out of town back then, but I was a little kid. And I remember going down there and we were heading downtown in the car, and we drove our normal route down there and did our thing. I think we went to the grocery store to get gas or something. I don't know. And then we came back. Well, on the way back, there was a woodchuck on the side of the road that wasn't there when we went down. And Dad's like, oh man, roadkill. So we stopped and picked that sucker up.
No, are you kidding me?
So this is better. Like, it's a woodchuck. Like, I'm like, we've gone out and killed like probably more woodchucks back then than I lived on the railroad tracks than I care to count. We never brought one home. Why he had this idea that this roadkill was like, I think it was because we had a church wild game potluck the next day. And I kid you not, he made like woodchuck stew out of this thing, of this roadkill woodchuck. And
I think of how many woodchucks could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could woodchuck or something like that.
Woodchuck could chuck wood, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, so
did you eat any of that?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I just remember that story as like my brother and I were talking about that the other day, kind of reminiscent about. I was telling him about the now he would eat them. My brother definitely would probably pick that bag up and he'd munch on those Cheetos. But anyway, well, I'm glad you keep yourself safe, and I do too. So it's we
don't need to be eating Cheetos anyway. No Cheetos.
That's good.
Right? We shouldn't. Good. It's good.
Hey, all right, we're going to transition into what I promised at the beginning of the show today. Enough about Cheetos, and we're going to talk about finding the who in our business. Big A, start us off.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this as we were preparing and getting ready for that. And I got to be honest with you, I royally messed up over the years with thinking I had to do everything. I was raised in a household that like you did everything. It didn't matter what it was. I mean, like if it needed to be done, you did it because it was cheaper. You didn't have to call anybody, and there was no excuses like get out there and do it. It doesn't matter. Just cut the yard or cut the tree down or fix your bike or overhaul your motor on your car. It didn't matter what it was. My dad was like, he could fix anything. He could do anything. And when I went into business early on in my career, I had that same mindset. I was like, it didn't matter what it was. I'll do it. It doesn't, I'll clean the toilets or sweep the floors or sell the jewelry or whatever it was, the business that I had at the time. It didn't matter what it was. Like, sign me up. And I thought about the reason for that. And it was primarily because I didn't want to pay somebody else to do it. But I didn't really have a mentor. I didn't have someone walking alongside me, letting me know that the most valuable thing I've got is time. And I wish that I had somebody, to walk alongside me as a young guy and say, you can't get that back. And over the years, I've grown to understand the value of getting the proper who's to do the things. But it's not just a financial decision. They're much more qualified and capable of doing various tasks. And I could go do those things, but is that the best use of my time? Now, I don't want to take away from the fact that there's things I enjoy doing just to get out. Like I don't cut my yard, and there's nothing wrong with if you cut your yard, but I just decided that I could spend time, in the mastermind or recruiting people to be in the mastermind or coaching one-on-one individuals or writing a new book or something and make enough money, not to have to do the yard and pay for having that done. Plus, they do a lot better job. They stripe it. I love that stripe look. And so I didn't know how to do that. And so these guys are really good at it, and they can get in and out. 4 or 5 guys come or 3 guys come and do it, and they're gone in 45 minutes. It take me all day. And then I've got to service all the equipment, all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. So when we bought this house 10 years ago, I sold everything's got a motor on it. I said, I'm done. Not because I'm too good to do it, because I know there's people that can do it better and I can have better use of my time. And so I think that's really the reason we wanted to talk about this today, is to all of us to take a self-evaluation and find out the reason that it is that you're trying to do every single task in your business or every single task around your house. What are the motivations? But what about you, Wally? Are you the guy that does everything, or you looking for the right who always, and you're always, cognizant of the time that it's going to take you to do it, or your skills, your ability? Where are you at on this?
Yeah, so let's set the record straight. You sold everything with a motor on it, but your backpack blower.
I do have a blower. I love to blow leaves. I do. I do. You're right. I do. You know what? I got to back up even further, because recently I bought a steel saw that cuts these little limbs, and I've been thinning out some woods around my house. So I got to recant on that. But the best thing I've got with a motor on it is my boat.
Your boat.
And that's the reason.
Sure.
That's the reason I don't cut the yard off. I'd rather be on the lake. But yeah, I do. Now that you said that, I do have 2 things.
Yeah, I think the important thing, what you're trying to get across, right, is that you've gotten rid of the things that you don't really truly enjoy, and you have the resources to, it's so interesting. Just a quick note about that I get caught up in that, even with, we're going to talk about business stuff quite a bit here in a minute, but you kind of let off with the whole mowing your yard thing, so that you can do more business activities.
Sure.
And I find it interesting that I used to believe that having somebody mow my lawn or whatever it was, something around the house, whether it's hiring a cleaner or whatever, I used to think that was a very selfish thing to do. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned over the years, especially as you get to know the people that enjoy doing that kind of work, is that you can actually, for the first time here in Tennessee, I have a lawn guy, and he mows the lawn. His name is Eddie. And I love talking to Eddie when he comes to mow the yard. He's super nice dude. Mm-hmm. And I just like the relationship. And he does a great job, and I get to reward him for his work, just like people reward me for my work. Mm-hmm. And so I like that relationship. Sonia, my wife, we have a cleaner in the house. Do we need one? No, there's just the 2 of us. Like, we could do it ourselves. But come to find out, her name is Ashley, and Sonia loves Ashley, and she comes and I don't know, she likes blessing her with, bacon bread or whatever it is. And,
that's cool.
And she does a great job, and she's got to be part of her life, and she's having another baby. And I don't know. It's just cool. It's a way to be able to bless people, even in our personal lives with the things around our house, if that's something that you want to give up and don't enjoy. But I think when it comes to the business side of things, I probably, especially in the beginning, I don't know if it was about the money for me. It was about quality. I was really, really concerned that if someone else did what I was doing, that it wouldn't be done like I did it, and therefore I would suffer because of it. And there's a reality to that probably is somewhat true. Even in my experience of starting to hire people and, learning from books like the E-Myth and about building systems and processes and hiring people, I'm not a big fan of the E-Myth. I'm a big fan of the E-Myth. There's parts of it that's like, I don't believe anymore that you can McDonaldize every part of your business. Right. And I actually like the idea of, and I'll probably talk about more as we get into this, but I like the idea of backing that up a little bit. I think when you give someone a job and you've done like in the E-Myth where you've mechanized or processized or put a process on every little possible tidbit of what that person's supposed to do, it actually takes away some of their autonomy, some of their freedom, some of their discretion to be able
Creativity.
to do a great job. Yeah. Yeah. It almost minimizes their talent.
Yeah,
And I know that
there's a flip side to what you just said, though, and I want to be sure we get this in.
Sure.
You do a really good job at all the things that you do, but oftentimes or sometimes they do it better than you.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because they're gifted in that area. And so that's the goal. The goal is not to lessen the quality. The goal is to get the right who, and that's what we're talking about today, so that it takes us up a notch instead of bringing us down.
Yeah. The other book that we'll put in a resource at the end here that you and I have learned a lot from is Who Not How.
Yeah.
And
Dan Sullivan.
Yeah, that's a fantastic resource, and we'll put more in the end so people can go check that out if you haven't. But those two resources are great to help. And I think probably in the beginning for me, it was more about quality, and I had this limiting belief that it wasn't going to be as good. And at the end of the day, it wasn't as good in the very beginning. But as I learned to hire the right people, to your point, the work actually became better quality and better than what I could have done. But there was this little gap where, and I think a lot of us in businesses where we get started, we're bootstrapping, we've got 1 or 2, 3 employees, money's good, but it's tight.
Sure.
And because of that, we're really conscious of who we're hiring. So we hire the cheapest, person that we can get, and maybe don't go through all the steps that we need to go through to hire someone. And it ends up not being as good, and it lives out. And then we trick ourselves into thinking that, oh, see, I was right. And it's like, well, the reality is we just didn't hire the right person. Good to Great talks about having the person on the right bus, right? The right seat on the bus. And I kind of like the idea of thinking of us more at View from the Top, even as a race team. And, a bus is pretty kind of lame. So I like a race team.
You need a Ferrari.
Yeah. Let's get everybody in the car, in the race car, and tune it up for them, and give them, something to drive that they can be excellent at, and way better than we ever could in our roles. What's it been like for you throughout the years? You've owned a number of businesses, and I do want you to end today, in this part of the conversation, I do want you to talk about even View from the Top the last 3 to 5 years, what it's been like for you, because you made a lot of changes, mindset and otherwise these last few years. I think been very valuable.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was looking back after we talked through what we were going to discuss today, and I was thinking some of the decisions that I would have made differently if I could do a do-over. And there was one company in particular that we had that was a very good company that I was convinced no one there, including my partner, could do it as good as I could do it. Like, I know that's arrogant, and I was pretty arrogant, quite honestly, in my 20s and 30s. You wouldn't have, been on this podcast with me, probably. You wouldn't want to be associated. You wouldn't have liked me. I'm not sure you like me now all the time, but you really wouldn't have liked me then, because I thought, hey, I got this, I'm going to do this. And I worked from daylight to after dark every day. I thought, nobody can do this but me. And I ended up selling the company, and we did good. I mean, at the end, we did good. But looking back, the irony of this conversation on this date with this question. So I've been out of that company over 2 decades now, but they just sold that company. And while we're recording this week, my ex-partner, sold the business for a lot of money. And he closes this week on that business, 20 years later. And he hired a manager after he and I, parted ways, and I sold my half of the business to him, and he didn't work. He didn't work. He didn't go. I mean, he was there maybe a day, 2 days a week, sometimes not at all. And towards this latter part, maybe the past 5 or 6 years, occasionally he would go in and the business flourished and it did great. It did do better when he and I were there, but it did good enough that he made a lot of money for 2 decades after I left. And I missed out on that. I missed out on that opportunity because of my mindset. No one else can do it. I wouldn't hire a manager. It was he or I, one was going to be in the store, and that was the way it was going to be. And I wouldn't dare even consider one of us not being there.
Was it because of the ability to run it, or was it about the money? Like, can you keep it all for yourself?
No, it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the money. It was not about the money. It was about, I didn't think they would do it the way I do it, because we really ran a top shelf operation. Customer service was incredible. Now, I will say, and I'm not talking negatively about what's transpired over the past 2 decades, but they didn't do as much business and the quality of the service went down dramatically. I mean, it was very evident, and people that I know went in there would tell me. But it still was a very profitable company that a Fortune 500 ended up buying 20 years later, and he did very well. So it was being run good enough. But for me, it was like I wanted it to be like when he and I were there. And I just couldn't get through the fact that a manager could do it maybe at 75 or 80% of what I was doing. And I just wasn't willing to let go. Now, looking at it today, much more mature today than I was then, obviously, I would revisit that and train the people. See, here's the thing, Wally. I didn't have these mentors. I didn't have coaches. I didn't have people walking alongside me, teaching me these things. I was trying to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what I didn't know. And so that's the reason that we're trying to encourage and teach and train and get men around trusted advisors and have accountability and have coaches and have mastermind, and resources. And I didn't have those things early on in my career. And so I'm not going to chastise myself too bad because I just didn't know, then what I know now. And that's the reason we want to do these podcasts, and the reason we do the mastermind and we do coaching is to help people dodge some of those landmines that we had to detonate for ourselves. And so I just didn't know. But no, it wasn't about the money. It was about the quality of service.
Gotcha. I know there are so many guys that I talk to, including myself in this, where you're building a business, you're starting off, and you get to a much later place in life. So for me, I started a company in 2003. I was a SaaS company, so we were building software, websites, and doing marketing services for RV dealerships. I had an opportunity to sell that in 2019. But along the way, as we were building that, the bottom line is this: I should have hired competent people faster. And so many business owners that I talk to, after they do it, it'll take them way too long. And I'm not saying that you put yourself at a terrible disadvantage to do it, but there are roles in your business, especially as you start to grow your business, especially in the beginning. A lot of times the founder or the CEO or the owner, they'll be like heavily involved in the sales side. And then operations starts to creep up because they start fulfilling the work that they've sold. Mm-hmm. And so now they're doing a lot of operations things, and that's not their gifting mostly. And so they started doing operations things. One of two things happen. And Gerber talks about this in his book. A lot of guys will start to subscribe to the operations side because they're not really business owners. They just have a job, right? There's a difference. And so that's what they really enjoy. They're not really cut out to be an entrepreneur, but they thought they should go this route and think we're out. So they end up coming back to the operation side, and a lot of them get stuck there. And a lot of them are happy there, and they shouldn't be the sales guy. But a lot of times, most often, the sales guy is the visionary, the founder. They get sucked into the operation side, and they struggle because they don't really enjoy it. It's not in their area of genius. And they really need to be focused on the sales efforts and growing the team. And they just struggle for way too long because they're not willing to really take a step back, to really look at the economics of the situation, be willing to invest in the training, and sometimes they don't know how to hire the right person. A lot of times this is like they've had some success with the first couple of hires, things seem to be going good, but then they start realizing as they need to hire very competent people that they don't have systems and processes for hiring people. And so they don't know what to do. So they get themselves jammed up there sometimes. And it is difficult and hard, but it's completely doable. And I think with you mentioned earlier about having people around you that can help you and plug you into systems and processes that we've seen work. There's methodologies out there that we're happy to share with people that work. Everything from My Business on Purpose to Traction to there's other things that Entre Leadership, like all those things work if you follow them. And so I really think it's important for business owners to really dive into and think deeply about that need to get someone in their business to help them do what they do really well, especially if you're in that sales side of things.
Well, let me pull the curtain back just a little bit. You had mentioned earlier in the podcast about some of the transitions that we've gone through here at View from the Top. And that's exactly the mindset I was in early on. Just to give a brief history, 12 years ago, I had sold a business and I thought I was going to be done. And a couple of guys encouraged me to coach, and I started coaching a couple of business owners and started doing a few podcast interviews, and God just really opened the floodgates for us, and people started coming. And I was like, man, I can't coach all this many people. And so I went to Robin and I said, I'm going to start a mastermind. And so we started one group, and that turned into 2 groups. That turned into 5 groups. And I went to Brooke that was helping me a little bit. And I said, hey, I'm going to need you more than I thought. And so she came on board and said, yeah, let's go for it. And so we went in and we just did what we needed to do. And as that continued to grow, years down the road, we had 10 groups and then 12 groups. And, you were in the mastermind for years, and you had this exit, with your company, and you and I started talking, and you've got such an eye for being that systems and process guy. You're the integrator, I'm the visionary, and you have done amazing things with systems, the processes, the job roles, the job descriptions, the KRAs, the KPIs, figuring out the foundational pieces, which I suck at really bad, right? Not only do I suck at it, I hate it. Like, that is not what I'm interested in doing. And I was the person Gerber was talking about in the book that gets sucked into those operations. And I started not enjoying what I was doing. And I was like, plus I'm not good at it. And then you were a godsend, right? You came, Brooke did exactly what she's capable and qualified to do and does an amazing job. But there was a different skill set that you brought to the table. And today it's a much different, well-oiled machine than it was in prior years. And so we've been ramping up and doing some things. Pretty excited. We just hired a VP of sales, which I was doing, which I'm qualified to do, but it's not something that I enjoy doing each and every day.
Right.
I'd rather be doing the things that I'm gifted at. And so he brings 20 years of sales experience, right? And we're excited about that and what that looks like. We've got team members that do these other tasks that they're qualified, and it's making my job more enjoyable. Excuse me. It's making it a lot more enjoyable for me to operate in that zone of genius. And you are in alignment, Brooke's in alignment, the rest of the team is in alignment, and the quality of all of our lives are better as a result of it. But it took a lot of mindset shift to get there, right? And I had to let go of some things and trust. And so that's what I've done, and it's paid off amazingly well.
When I was at Interact RV and I started, similar to you, started realizing that, hey, I could do this myself, or I could, but I wasn't gonna, what's that statement about you can go fast alone, but further together.
Right.
And I'd gone through some training and things and started to realize, hey, I need to build a team of people, and started putting a hiring process together about, how to actually hire people correctly and how to onboard them correctly and how to get them to understand the vision and using some of their tools. And so as I went through that process, I started to have people come on the team that I remember I remember the first time that I was doing a one-on-one, or maybe it was just a small team meeting or something. I think the team member had asked me to like, hey, can I talk to you? Because they didn't report directly to me anymore. They reported through their team leader that we had put in place. And I think this is correct. I think they asked me to stay after a meeting and they want to talk to me real quick. And I was like, oh man, what's going on? You know, you hate those requests sometimes because you're like, you know, even though our retention rate was 92% of team members over a 5-year period. Like it was awesome.
It's phenomenal. Yeah.
But you still wonder, it's like, okay,
Yeah, sure.
oh man, they're going to give me the 2-week notice or whatever it was, you know. It wasn't that at all. What they said was, hey, Kevin, we really like you. Like you're good. Like you're great. You're a great founder. You're a great owner. You treat us well. Like we like you. But our monthly team rallies that we have where you monologue for 45 minutes, can we have the team leaders start talking about what's going on in their business units instead of you talking for 45 minutes? And there was I had that moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like no one needs me anymore. You know, like that moment I was kind of like frustrated and like, what are you talking about? I didn't say that, right? But I'm thinking like, oh my, like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't need me anymore? Like what? I quickly realized, I'm like, you know what?
It was really a win.
It's a really good idea. Win. Yeah. And so I went from monologuing for 45 minutes essentially on these team rallies once a month to like, I'd have like 5 or 10 minutes. And those team leaders, they brought creativity, they brought inspiration, they brought just a different perspective. I worked with them obviously, and I knew what they were going to talk about most of the time ahead of time on the call. Like we vetted that out and whatnot, but they just brought it in their way. And then what I found is I got to be the fun guy. Like I got to, because I started doing things like having like what I called rally challenges. And I would come up, basically I would do one question would be about a current event. And we met on like Zoom. So they had the chat function. So I'd ask the question and I'd say, hey, you can't cheat and go look at Google, but here's the question. And it would be some random fact about some current event going on in the world. And whoever typed the answer correct in first, you know, we'd send them like a $25 or $50 gift certificate, gift card or whatever to their favorite restaurant or whatever. And then I asked the question about our core values or something inside of our business. Like, you know, we did work with RV dealership. So one of the questions I went and I did a quick database search one time on how many like RVs the dealers have in stock at that particular moment across all of our customers. Like nobody would know the answer. It would be any, right? But I asked that question, everybody would kind of guess. And it was fun to see like some people were way off and they just had no idea. Yeah. That's a complete side note. But my point is that allowing other people in your business and giving them space to really be awesome at what they do frees you up to do some other things that maybe it's not rally challenges for your team. Maybe that's not it, but maybe it's sales. Maybe it's a focus on other relationships you have that you want to get, spend more time with your wife or your kids because you've been, like you mentioned, you know, I remember those 60 to 80 hour weeks. I remember them.
They're tough.
And I'm not going to be here and say that I couldn't have gotten where I was without doing them either. I don't think that's naive. I don't know because that's not what happened. I just know what happened to make it happen.
Right.
But when I started to get some time back, that was worth. I mean, it was a sacrifice. I made less money for essentially 5 years because I kept hiring people. I would make enough money to hire somebody.
Cashed in though. Yeah,
it worked out. I'm not going to lie, right? Like it definitely worked out.
So it's an investment in yourself, and that's what you need to do. One of the reasons that it worked so well for you is because you really tied your motivation for finding the right who to the values of the company, to the mission statement of the company, to the vision of the company. And so they were sold out when they came, right? They were like, no, man, I'm in. And that's what we've done here is we spend a lot of time making sure that people are on board. Even within the mastermind, when we interview prospective applicants, you know, it's like, hey, are you someone that's interested in having your family first and that you're really trying to grow and you've got ambitious goals and somebody that's got a sense of momentum and you really want accountability. Like you tie them to what the values of the company is. And those are the right who's. They're the right mastermind members. That's the reason we've had guys, for years and years and years participating, is because we vet them out properly on the front end. So that's one of the things that we want to tell you along the way. To get the right who, you've got to do your due diligence. Mm-hmm. You've got to be sure that your motivation for hiring that person aligns with those values and mission of your business. Well, switching gears just a little bit related to that is when we're getting the right people, there's a big difference in using people and getting people that are truly valuable for the organization where your values, like we just hired Brandon, and Brandon's involved in sales, and we're in total alignment. We spent weeks and weeks and weeks doing, different personality tests and having meetings, at the coffee shop and doing a survey and him answering questions and
got
meeting
counsel.
with different team
we were
members,
in prayer,
right?
like all those things.
Right.
Yeah.
All those things. And so it's just really important. And now I'm like fired up, like I'm ready to roll. And he is too, because he's in total alignment. But we've got to have it mutually beneficial for everybody. It's not just for us, but hopefully this is going to be really good for Brandon and our other team members as well. So just really look at it through the lens of it being mutually beneficial for everyone. Do your homework. Don't just hire the first guy that comes along. Really make sure they align with your culture. Wally, when I start thinking about finding the right who, I really think about we need to focus on really emphasizing more on the relationship and less really on the knowledge. Now, when I say that, I'm not saying that we should ever stop learning. Like I'm an avid reader. I know you are as well. We're attending conferences. We do all the things that we need to do to learn. But when you're finding the right who, it's about the right person. It's about the relationship. And you know me, man, I love relationships. And relationships matter most to us. In every business we've ever owned, it's been at the top of the list. I know it has for you as well. We're dealing with people, whether we're dealing with widgets or services, whatever it is. I want us to always have people at the forefront of our minds. I want us to look for those people that are in alignment with those core values, in line with the mission. But at the same time, how can we benefit them? Even with Brandon, we're just using him as an example because that's our most recent hire. But it was like, what is good for you? Like, what are you excited about? What motivates you? What comp package are you going to be most interested in long term? And what is it that's important? Is it time off? Is it more revenue? So we went through this not just for our benefit, but for his benefit. And I just want to say that that's the way we should look at all business dealings, right? It's not just for what we can get out of somebody, but it's how can it be mutually beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate the mention of, relationships matter most to you too, Kevin. But I'll just be completely transparent that I haven't always, and even sometimes now, I'm tempted not to think that way. I'm more of a analytical thinker and doer, and the relationship part doesn't come as naturally to me as it does to you. And so I do have to be careful that I don't approach a situation in a relationship. We're thinking about work here, and we're thinking about bringing the right person in. And I think the benefit of having a good hiring process, taking the time to develop one, and slowing down is that you're less likely to try to take advantage of someone or use someone just to fill a hole. Because, think about how, not just unprofessional, but think about how much damage it can do to your own business. Think about the opportunity cost that you're going to incur by not taking the time up front to really make sure that you've got, the best possible hire that you think you have. Because I think the shorter time we make that more quickly make the decision, I think it is more about us. It's just naturally designed to be more about us and less about the other person.
That's a good point. Yeah. At the end of the day, though, the relationships do matter most, right?
I agree. I'm just not saying I don't always think that way sometimes.
Well, we're going to work on that with your one-on-one.
It is a constant, for sure, working for me.
We're going to stay with it. But, really it pays off big time when you do have the right person, because you're really driving towards your vision with the right person. You're doing it together as a team. And I know that slogan, you say it often, you can go faster alone, but you can go further together. And that is so true. But there's other things too that are beneficial. And one of them is the expertise that you get in the person. A lot of them are very diverse perspectives that we get. And that's cool. Is I got tickled in our live meeting we had yesterday. You came into the meeting, and fortunately, we all live here. And so we're able to meet at our office. And you said, I'll be honest with you, like, Brandon, you got 20 years of experience and I got to up my game. And I was like, okay, I like that, because it does level all of us up,
Yeah.
right? Because people bring different perspective, they bring different talents and skills, and it makes us all pay attention more, which is a good thing for the whole team. And so, yeah, I'm glad you said that yesterday. That was good.
That was good. I think the idea of those different perspectives and expertise, like, often it's easy to think, well, but someone's going to have a different perspective, different opinion that's going to take the business in a direction I don't want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's maybe why I don't want to hire someone. Or you're not ready to hire someone because you haven't actually figured out what that is. That is a fact. That's true. If you haven't taken the time to figure out and write down, what it is, you've got your values and your mission and your vision that you can share with someone that you're bringing on board. And I'm not talking about just talking. There's a difference when you can slide that piece of paper across the desk, or you can send that in an email and pull it up, have them pull it up on their screen, and they can see clearly what your values are and what you stand for and why. And they can see what your mission is, what you're about. And they can see your vision of where you're going. Now, when they come on, their perspective and their diversity that they're bringing to the table, their creativity is in alignment with where you're headed. You don't have to worry with a correct communication structure and check-ins and one-on-ones, and like, you don't have to worry about it getting like, well, they're going to go way off over here and do their own thing. Well, then you're not set up right. It's not about, like, to me, that's just like limited mindset, limited belief of, oh yeah, I can't do that because of this. Well, one of our core values is relationships matter most. Another one is no excuses. So stop making excuses for yourself.
Right.
And we all do it. We all can do it. And so get those foundational pieces in place, communicate those through the hiring process, and your confidence level and their confidence level is going to dramatically increase. And the perspectives and the diversity that they bring to the table. We're right now, I think we mentioned this recently, but we just started work. We've used some other assessments like DISC and other things in the past, but recently we've used Working Genius. And right now, I think come up in a few weeks, we're doing a 90-minute masterclass on the Working Genius. And so if you're listening to this podcast and it's way past August 24th, 2023, just email us and we'll get you a copy of that masterclass. You can email us at pod@viewfromthetop.com and just say, hey, that masterclass on Working Genius, let us know what that is. But that's coming up. But we've been using that tool a little bit inside the business, learning to use it. And we're going to learn more on how to use it here soon. But they have this ability to go in and say, okay, what's your Working Genius? What's your competency out of 6 types? And then what's your frustration? And so there's 2 in each. And for us, being able to use the tool, take the evaluation, and inside their tool allows you to map out, taking everybody that's on the team and map out like them all together. And so you can see where the holes are and where they aren't.
You know what I like about that tool as well is it allows us to know what your expertise is, but also your frustration, and it prepares you better how to talk to a team member about a situation, because you know that this is an area that could frustrate them and you can prepare differently. It's just amazing how we think so differently about things. And you mentioned something a moment ago about sharing with team members. You and I are growing closer together the way we view this, but historically, I've been very private about everything related to the business. And I give people very minimal amounts of information. You're much more robust in that area. Talk about that just for a second to people, how to work through that. How do you know how much to share, how little to share? When is the appropriate time to share as we work through these relationships? How did you do it at your previous company? And maybe share how we're doing it here a little bit differently now.
Yeah, sure. I haven't always done this well in every instance. Um, in the beginning, when you're growing and you're starting off, you're not really sharing much information. And I think once you start building, for me, it was when I started building a team. And I was asking my team leaders to make decisions about the business that they couldn't make in a silo. And so that was, I realized that pretty quickly within the first year. That, I mean, to me, that seemed fast. I don't know. When you're in business for 18 years, a year seems really fast.
Right.
But I recognize how important that was to not have them be in a silo. So you have to realize, like, okay, what information do they need to help them be effective in their role? We use KRAs, key results areas, that again came out of Entree Leadership. And so we use those to identify what they're responsible for. What are the results they're supposed to achieve? And then once you know that, if you don't define it, you don't know. And so it's like, well, how much do they know? Well, they need to know as much as they need to know to be effective and do their KRA with excellence and to be successful. So what is that? And that's a little different for everybody. I've heard there was a book that came out a long time ago about open book management. Is that what it was called? Something like that. And it was about, tell it all to your company. And I've sat in on mastermind groups where guys have done that and it's backfired terribly.
Yeah. Yes, it will.
Yeah, I've heard it. And so I'm not a big fan of like, look, here's how much money I make and here's how much money you don't make. Okay. I'm not a big fan of that.
Mm-mm.
I think it goes back to the information that they need to help them be successful.
Make a decision
in the role.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what they need. And
I remember when we first started this, I was really quiet about the finances.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody dealt with that but me. And finally, we had a fractional CFO and started sharing more there. And then I remember Brooke is my daughter, but she's also the director of operations, been with us since the beginning. She wasn't involved in that side of the business at all. And just until recently, past couple of years, she's come on board with that. And she came to me and she said, Dad, listen, I probably would have made a lot different decisions had I had access to this information. And that was my fault. That's on me, right? It wasn't on her. And so I would just suggest to the listeners today to be mindful of that. Listen to some of these tidbits of information that Wally's given you about how he doles out the information. Think about, are your team members operating in a silo? Do they have adequate information to make good decisions, right? And so give them access, give them opportunities to make great decisions based on the information that they have. And as we build these relationships, it's the speed of trust. It's like the more we trust people, but you've got to give trust before you can get trust. And so we've got to dole that out to people to make them show themselves accountable, make themselves in a position to where they can make good decisions. So, yeah, it's really good. The other thing that I think really helps is being able to manage our time better. When you've got the right who, you're not waiting for things to be done. And for me, like it would take me forever to do a certain thing. And now one of our team members can do it in, 10 minutes that would take me an hour to do. And so no one can be an expert at everything, but attempting to do that really drains you as an individual. It drains our time. So you've got to really think through how important your time is. And time management is important in all of our businesses, right? We've got to pay special attention to that. And then finally, just related to time management is if you delegate to the person that's competent and capable, that is in alignment with their skills and their knowledge, you're going to be much more effective in everything that you do.
one of the other areas that I think about when you think about bringing people on to fill roles that you've determined ahead of time that the business needs, just because you're busy doesn't mean that you just hire somebody. I think that you really need to evaluate what the business needs, and that's based on the vision and what your resources are, what level of risk you're willing to assume to be able to move the needle forward. I think that as you do that and you bring people on, we talked a little bit about this before, but their creativity and giving them space, you're not holding them so close and micromanaging them as they come on. Like you got to communicate, through like a KRA or some type of a job description of what you're expecting out of them, and then let them do their thing. Like let them be amazing, right? Like allow them to shine.
Right.
It's not the same as being a parent, but I think in relationships, this principle is the same. Is that when you have allowed and you've had your child at home and they get to an appropriate age of some type of achievement or some type of accomplishment that they've had in their life, and you observe that happening, you are so stinking proud. You are. You're just
you are
proud, not arrogantly proud, but proud in the sense that you're happy for them. You truly are happy for them. And I have found that to be true too. When I've taken the time in the past to let others be amazing, let them shine, give them opportunities to use their unique skills, and it boosts their morale and their motivation, not just with them, but it flows over into other team members. And the feeling of pride that you get for your people, and that directly influences the culture that you have within your business. 100%.
Wally, as a side note to that, walk alongside them and make a point in your team meetings to highlight that person, to affirm them publicly and say, hey, listen, this person has stepped up to the plate. They've done an amazing job. I'm proud of their efforts. And I want the team to acknowledge some of the things that they've done amazing. It really goes a long way for team members to be acknowledged in front of their colleagues and peers to let them know you've done a great job. And so just
can I say something about that though? I agree with you. I've also observed that sometimes the founder, the owner, they see that as something they need to do. And so they do it. And the challenge becomes with that is that sometimes you get more as the founder and the owner, and you build teams and you give people more autonomy and you get a little further removed from them. And then you try to swoop in, not you trying to be the hero, that's not what I'm saying, but you swoop into a meeting or swoop into some place and you build somebody up. But that person is smart enough to sit there and know, yeah, thanks for saying that, but you don't really know what I'm doing.
The appropriate person needs to say
very
it to
much
them,
so.
right?
And so that is really, really important because you don't
Great point.
You don't want to blow smoke.
Great point. No, not at all.
And that's not the intent of most owners and founders.
No,
it's not their intent.
But you're right.
But it can happen if you're not paying attention.
Yeah. Get the appropriate direct report, right, to their leader to affirm. Great point. Glad you brought that up.
Hey, we're talking about, we're coming to the close here of this, and I think I want to kind of finish out with a few things. We've talked about finding the right who. But what are some steps that we can take? How do we know when the time is right?
Yeah, you're probably a better judge of that than me, quite honestly. I'm busy casting vision and you're in the weeds. And so when is the best time?
All right, I'll go through the things that I thought of. I think the first thing, and I mentioned this a little bit, and we're kind of summarizing here as we finish up to give everybody listening today some things to walk away with. And I think one is having that written down vision of where do you want to go and when. If you don't know that, then every time you think about hire somebody, it's typically you're not being proactive, you're being reactive. And most of the time when we make a reactive decision, we're making it from a defensive posture. And almost every time you make something from a defensive posture, you're not moving forward. You're either defending to stay where you are or you're moving backward. And so when I think about when I want to hire, I want it to be proactive. And that means I have to be paying attention. I got to know my vision, where I'm going and why it matters. That's first and foremost. I think about a founder's mentality check. We were in a mastermind group. Was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. And we were talking to a guy in our mastermind group. Actually, he was man in the middle, and he was talking about how does he want to be a therapist? He's a therapist that has his own business right now. But does he want to be a therapist or does he want to be a practice? And that's the difference between, do I want to own my own job or do I want to own a business? If you want to,
and it matters the way he builds it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that matters because then you get the people. So if you're going to own a job, you're going to have maybe one person, two people you're going to work with. Those one or two people are important, but you probably don't need to put as much time and energy into, I say that people are going to email us and say, well, that's not true. But the reality is if you're hiring one or two people, you can probably find good people and they're probably going to be people you already know, frankly, right? When you got one or two people. And so you're going to be fine if what you want to own is a job. But if you want to own a business, that's your founder's mentality of where you're at. You make the decision if I'm building a business or am I building a job? And if you're building a business, the way you look at things is going to be very different and you need people to help you accomplish that. There's nothing wrong with either way.
Well, I knew in the beginning when I started coaching, and that was a high-paying job. And the reason I say that is because Robin and I would want to go on vacation for a couple of weeks, and I had to cancel all the one-on-one coaching clients. And so the vacation cost whatever the vacation cost plus the loss of revenue. And it dawned on me, I said, all I'm doing is exchanging time for money. And I don't want to do that because I'm also not building an asset. I'm not building something to sell later. And so this therapist that you're talking about's mindset is exactly right. He's realized that in his practice or in his job, and he wants this practice. And so he's got to look at it entirely different.
Yeah. And then, of course, budget, right? At the end of the day, you think through all these things, they sound good and wonderful. And you're like, okay, where's the money?
I have the money.
From?
Right.
And so there's a lot of things that you can do. You know, I've been there, you've been there, and you know that when you're starting off or even you've got some momentum, you've already got those dollars applied somewhere, even if it's just in your head, like you know where it's going.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, if you're building a business and you're like, man, you know, how can I free up some time? How can I serve my customers better? How can I get the sales engine going more quickly? How can I, like, when you think as a business owner, that requires, there's systems and processes you can put in place and software you can use to help, you know, semi-automate some of these things. But at the end of the day, you need capable people. And so as you're bringing these thinking about bringing these people in, it's so easy to get caught in that short term, you know, here's the reality, right? Especially if, God forbid, that you're one of those people that has your business and your home money in the same account. And, you know, assuming you...
That's a whole nother episode.
Assuming you don't, hopefully you don't, and you have them separated. And, you know, if your wife is part of your business, typically there's a convincing that has to take place, understanding has to take place, right, with your spouse a lot of times. So depending on where you're at, because they see what's there, they see what's possible, and they don't necessarily have all the context, which isn't wrong. It's just how it is. I remember that happening. You know, when my wife was a bookkeeper for a couple of years, we talked about firing her before, and she was a bookkeeper, and she'd be like, "Hey," I'd be like, "Hey, honey, we really can't do that," and she'd be like, "Yeah, but this is what the bank account is," and she wasn't wrong, but she just didn't have full context, and so. Understanding the bigger picture on the budget of what your obstacles are, who you need to communicate to, what you maybe need to change your mindset on of what's going to, okay, is this worth a short-term sacrifice, right, to get a longer-term gain over in this area of the business? Whether that's time, whether that's money and revenue, whether that's just reducing stress, for goodness sake, sometimes, right? Imagine if you could, okay, so when I came into View from the Top, we were doing a lot of things, like a ton of different things. And they were all, I think all of them were good. Like they were good things. And, you know, kind of taking a play out of Steve Jobs' playbook when they hired him back at Apple, you know, the last time. He came in, I forgot how many products they had, like a ton. and he just
down.
chopped them way down to like a handful.
Yeah.
He focused.
They've done okay.
He did okay. They focused.
They did okay.
Yeah. And so that's what we did here at View from the Top is we took inventory of everything was. And guess what? Like we've hired a couple of people now for different things that we need. And we've actually helped some other people transition out of some roles they had here and do some other things. But in those changes, we've gotten a business sense where we're happier coming to work. Really,
sure. Because of less stress.
Because of the stress.
We're operating in our area of genius,
but that took getting the right people in the right race car and the right seat on the bus, depending on when you look at it. So I think those three things, like looking at vision, looking at your own mindset of how you're looking at your business, and then, economically looking at it. And I would concur earlier than later, responsibly, once you have the first two things, your mindset and your vision correct, be willing to put a little more skin in the game and get some of those resources you've determined that you need in your business, communicate to them very, very well on what's expected and how they're going to show up so that they know what winning looks like at the end of the day, so that they're doing an amazing job and they feel good about it. And that's going to in turn help the business wherever you've put them into place.
Wally, I've enjoyed being here with you today. It's been fun. Just think about some of the things that we've said. If you're looking for the right who, don't try to do everything yourself. Really take an inventory, because if you get the right who, I can promise you it will ensure a much higher quality in your business that you're working on. There's no question in my mind that it can promote great efficiency within your company. It can reduce personal stress for you as an individual. I know I can be a testament to that, because it's really taken me to a different level in getting the right who's here at View from the Top. But also all the innovation that it fosters in having the right person. We don't know what we don't know. And when you have the diversity and you have the right people in the right seat, it really fosters that innovation. And then, as important, if not anything, it helps you build a strong team dynamic so that everybody's happy, they're excited to come to work, and they do a good job. So go back, take the notes necessary to get the right who, so that you too can go have that view from the top. Have a great one.
Hey, as we finish up today, just a real quick mention of the tools that we're going to list down below in the show notes. We mentioned Working Genius today. We mentioned DISC, which is an evaluation for work, DISC. We mentioned KRAs, which are key results areas. We mentioned EOS, which is the Entrepreneur Operating System and Business on Purpose. And we mentioned a couple books, Who Not How and The E-Myth by Gerber. So please take a look at those resources for your business. Use what's applicable for you and get the results that you want. And I'm not going to say you deserve, but it will help you be successful and find significance in what you're doing. Until next time.